She's basically knocking doors. Said every day someone tells me something they don't tell their best friend or their family, and then they cry, and then I cry. And I said, Ev, the thing is, this process makes you a much better person. And it makes you a much more spiritual person. It's made me a much more religious person. She said, Dad, I'm not religious at all. It's made me much more religious too. There's something going on here that's much deeper than the political conversation we're having. And if you see that kind of change in people's life expectancy because of despair in the United States of America, you know that we need a change. And we really deeply do.
Tom Steyer, thank you so much for talking to us.
Nice to meet you.
Appreciate it. Such an interesting conversation about just what's at stake. Now, world leaders are at the Yad Vashem Memorial in Jerusalem, honoring 75 years since the liberation of Auschwitz. It's a moment to remember not just the depravity of the Holocaust, but also the heroism of those who resisted. A play in London, Remember This, is highlighting just that, with the story of Jan Karski. He was a Polish courier in the resistance who risked his life to witness crimes against humanity committed by the Nazis during World War II, and then go on to warn the West's most powerful leaders about it. Actor David Strathairn plays Karski, and he is no stranger to these historical characters. He portrays Secretary of State William H. Seward in Steven Spielberg's Lincoln, and he was nominated for an Oscar for portraying the legendary TV journalist Edward R. Murrow in Good Night and Good Luck. And he's joining me now from Washington. David Strathairn, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Stan.
I can't imagine a better time, not just because of the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, but also because of the world we live in, for you to be playing this one-man play and portraying this amazing man. Well, what made you take it on?
Well, I have to say that he is one of these people whose life is exemplary in so many ways, particularly in public service, as a man who has borne witness to some of the most horrific events in history. And he has been, for most of his life, the last 40 years of his life, he was unknown. And the goal of the Laboratory for Global Performance and Politics that generated this project out of Georgetown University under the auspices of Derek Goldman and Cynthia Schneider, their goal is to put a human face on global politics, and that's kind of a generalized statement. But the nuts and bolts of it is to put people in a room from widely diverse beliefs, political postures, cultural identities, and have them reckon with, recognize, and have reflected to them these issues that impact millions of lives today. And that's why Jan Karski is so relevant, and that's why we've chosen to, through the School of Foreign Service out of Georgetown, present this piece, because I believe he lays down a gauntlet by his extraordinary life for all of us to move forward with bearing witness and telling the truth. And
well, witness is just so crucial and central to this, and we'll get into the unbelievable superhuman courage he showed to bear witness to the Warsaw Ghetto and then war. But I want to just play a little bit of a clip from the play to just show what's at stake.
We walk again in the street. We do not talk to anybody. We walk for probably 1 hour, and sometimes he tells me, look at this Jew. A man standing, not moving. Is he dead? No, Mr. Witold, he is alive, but remember, he is dying. He is dying. Look at him. Tell them over there in London and the United States that you saw it. Don't forget. We walk again. Only from time to time he whispers, remember this, remember this, remember this.
And that obviously the title of the play, and you've played it and portrayed it several times, and you're traveling around with it soon to London. I mean, you have an uncanny, I mean, I know you're an actor, but wow, you bear resemblance to the physical Jan Karski, obviously your accent. How emotional was it for you? I mean, you've taken on a lot of major historical characters. How emotional was it for you to say those words?
Very emotional. There's a moment in Shoah, Claude Lanzmann's extraordinary documentary about the tragedy of the Jews in World War II, in which Karski testifies and bears witness and speaks about his experiences. At the very beginning, he says, now I go back 35 years. And then this thing comes out of him. The 35 years come back to him in a moment in which he crumbles. He leaves the room and he comes back. Anytime you give voice to this kind of the power of that kind of what he witnessed and have hold on to a long time for 35, 40 years, it's a visceral, emotive experience. And it's what a public performance can do to people who are sometimes not exposed to this form of expression. It's the goal of the mission of the laboratory, to put people in a room to feel the emotion at a gut level, to give them an opportunity to walk in the shoes of the other, the person across the aisle, the person across the border, a person across ideological divide, all things which today are fracturing our world, to put them in a place where it's a safe place where they can experience this and hopefully have some kind of empathic reaction to it, where there may come some understanding. Confusions, fears, hates, biases may dissolve, and there possibly could be some, real truths shared. And he's the man. What he did in his life is exemplary of this.
Well, I want to, because I think it's really important that we hear from the real Jan Karski. And Shoah, as you mentioned, he did give an interview, and this is quite long, but I think it's really important to hear him. So let's just play this about what he saw and what he did.
Great.
I don't go back in my memory. I couldn't take anymore. But I reported what I saw. Yes, it was not a world. It was not a part of humanity. I was not part of it. I did not belong there. I never saw such things. Nobody wrote about this kind of reality. I never saw any theater. I never saw any movie. This was not the world. I was told that these are human beings. They didn't look like human beings.
David, it's really quite profound to actually listen to him and see him speak in such disbelief, and he was the one who saw it. And yet, I say that because when he went back and reported it to Winston Churchill and to President Roosevelt and to Felix Frankenfurter at the Supreme Court, Felix Frankenfurter, Jewish himself, they just didn't believe him. Walk me through that.
Well, he actually didn't have an audience with Churchill. Foreign Secretary Anthony Eden said that the Polish reports had already reached them about the atrocities, and that the matter would follow its proper course, and that he was told he was not permitted to take Churchill's time. He had a meeting with Roosevelt, as you said, but Roosevelt never asked him anything about the Jewish problem. And Justice Felix Frankfurter actually confessed to him that he could not conceive of the horrors. So that in that clip you just showed of him, there are two really very important things. He says, I reported what I saw. It was the truth. And that he never saw any theater. He never read anything about this. He was bearing witness to an event in our history that nobody could accept. So it's Yeah,
It was unimaginable. It was unbelievable at that time that anyone could dare treat one human being from another human being in such of a barbaric, cruel, unimaginable way. And because it was unbelievable, it made it more difficult for him to be able to tell the story in a believable way to the point that it would strike a tone in people's minds and in people's hearts of understanding how horrendous, how barbaric, how insensitive and cruel that this event truly was. You know, we look at what went on 75 years ago during the Holocaust of the Jews, that even to this day goes beyond most people's imagination, because some people actually are in denial about the Holocaust. The people in North Korea don't believe that the Holocaust even existed, because it is and was that barbaric. But if you think about it, didn't the same thing happen basically to the Native American over here in America, pertaining to how that Jackson ordered for all the Indians to be gathered up and to take them across the Mississippi of the Trail of Tears, during which time that there was so much pain and suffering, and they was putting Amtrak and poison in their bed linens and just causing so much genocide to a whole group of people over here in America pertaining to the Native American. Didn't basically the same thing happen? It may not have happened with gas. It may not have happened on the same level that the Jewish Holocaust happened, but it still happened. These are barbaric, cruel, heathenistic incidences that has happened to society that the Homo sapien race should not have never ever had to have went through, pertaining to one human being to another.
It's very significant that his journey of reporting, being in what many ways could be the true messenger as you are, you know, as many people are, and your colleagues are messengers of truth and fact. That today truth and facts are bandied about, you know, for personal gain, to control, to cajole, to confuse. But he is an example of somebody who, out of his courage and his will and his deep abiding faith, chose to do this.
And I see where he's coming from, pertaining to a journalist basically being a messenger, distributing a message to the general public. Kind of like whenever the Hindenburg that bursted up in flames. If you listen to the realness of the individual that was, I don't forgot his name now, I should, that was reporting that day. If you listen to the realness in his voice of what that he was actually describing in what he was seeing, you didn't have to be there at that particular moment. All you had to do was hear what he was saying, and the form that he was saying it in, that made you realize that this was not some sort of a Broadway script play, or it was some individual just making up a bunch of stuff, that this was actually occurring. You could tell by the tones of his voice that this individual was actually witnessing what he was witnessing that day when that balloon burst up into flames and it killed all those people. It was horrendous. But once more, the messenger has a great responsibility in how he or she distributes the message that they're trying to distribute to the audience. And maybe that's where I messed up in trying to bring forth the message of the opening of the seal pertaining to the two witnesses, pertaining to biblical Bible prophecy. Maybe I wasn't strong enough. Maybe I wasn't sincere enough. Maybe I wasn't verbal enough. Maybe I didn't use those tones that I should have used in my voice whenever I was out there ministering and telling people about